My name is Bianca Thomas Edrock. I am the proud mom of Ezekiel Edrock. Ezekiel is 7 years old. He's very bright and energetic. He loves music. He loves balls maze. He just loves some of everything. And Ezekiel started kindergarten and first grade in self-contained classroom. From the very beginning, I had thoughts that I would love for Ezekiel to be in a more least restrictive environment, but I had fears. The fears that kept me from saying it out loud. So I thought to myself, and then I would have conversations with his dad, and I would have to question multiple questions, which was, would he be able to even keep up with the curriculum? Would the classmate and the teacher accept him? Would he be overwhelmed? That was one of the biggest fears I had. And then I also was second guessing myself, asking myself if I was making the right decision for him. So as I said, I never openly talked about it with anyone except for his dad. And so the journey from there started to one day um, going to a StarNet event at the Chicago Children's Theater because I knew Ezekiel loved music. I thought it would be a great opportunity for him to be in a more natural environment, be it around other peers and children his age. But during this event, something happened where Ezekiel just, I don't want to say he was the star of the show, but he took over. Like he, that little shyness that he has, it took over. It took over, and he was coming out of his shell even more. He was clapping, singing, dancing, and even playing the guitar. And so I remember when Sarima, you had came and you asked me if my son was in a self-contained classroom, and at that time I said yeah, but I didn't even know what self-contained mean. Like I didn't even know the term self-contained. I just knew cluster general education. And so you had explained to me what self-contained was, and from there I realized, like, man, this is someone outside of me and my husband who can see what we seen all this time. It's a difference when us as parents see it, but to have someone else see it, it really meant that Ezekiel had potential. And so yeah, that's the beginning of the journey of what made me advocate for him. So the beginning of the journey of preschool, I didn't know too much. Even when he received his diagnosis, I didn't know too much about autism. It's not like they give us a book or a follow up. It's kind of like you kind of have to figure it out on your own. And so preschool came, he did his evaluation, and he was put into a classroom. I didn't know, as I said before, anything about the IEP meetings. I only went by what they told me because I didn't know that much. So he had a wonderful teacher, Miss Vicky, and she used to work with him and work with me as his mom on giving me some tools on adaptive books and just different strategies I can use for him to learn at home. And so she was really helpful in giving me those tools. When it was time for him to transition into kindergarten, number one, it was a big turn because he wasn't at the school that he was at for preschool. So it was hard for him to kind of leave Miss Vicky's teaching and transition to a whole different school, a whole different teacher, different set of kids. So kindergarten um, was a difficult transition for him. And so in kindergarten, he was learning things, but I guess I just didn't feel like he was I knew his potential. I knew that he can learn more. And so from there, once again, because not really knowing anything about the whole early intervention school. I only went by what was told to me. Oh, we're going to do this and then we're going to do this. And as a mom, I was like, okay, yeah, we could do that. No problem. I didn't really know that I had a say, to be honest. I didn't know I had a say. I just went with the flow of what was told to me. And so in kindergarten, um, when it came to his IEP, I was asking certain things like, well, can he have a one on one paraprofessional, or asking just different questions. And I guess they could tell that I didn't know what I was talking about because it seemed like I was asking the same question, they was giving the same answer. But I didn't know the terms that they was using. I didn't know the language that they was using. And so from that transition, I started wanting to know more because I felt in the IEP meetings like, man, they know I don't know what I'm talking about at all. And so from those meetings, um, StarNet was having workshops. And with the workshops at StarNet, I started to learn more about inclusion. I started to learn more about um, laws that would help me um, advocate for my son, especially in early childhood. StarNet showed me how to advocate underneath the federal laws, but most important, StarNet had also taught me how to use the language at the IEP meetings because I knew eventually I would want him to go into a least restrictive environment. I just didn't know how to present it. So when he went to first grade, I remember asking Tarima some questions, and I was just asking her, like, what can I do? What can I? And she really sat me down and she explained to me what terms I could use, what terms I shouldn't use, like going in there and not being demanding. And you know, at IEP meetings, we use so much emotion. It was more like this is a partnership. Talk to them like you're part of their team. And that's what I did. And I was really surprised from that transition into first grade to second grade that IEP meeting and me speaking up. I was surprised that the team actually listened to me. And then number two, I was even more surprised that they agreed with me. So all of us at the end came to a conclusion that a least restrictive environment would be best for Ezekiel. And that's how he ended there in second grade. So, yes, for Ezekiel, there was so many tools and just so much conversation that we had. And as you know, my worries, I was worried about him starting the whole general education classroom and if it was going to be the best fit. As I said, going into the IEP meetings, I learned how to, well, from you, I learned how to be calm. As I said, not wearing my emotions on my sleeve, but getting my point across professionally. And so during those IEP meetings, we just came up with, myself and his team came up with different things. But I could tell that they were surprised with some of the tools that I was asking for, which was like, hey, on a daily basis, can I get a note on how he did? As I said from the beginning, it seemed more of a partnership. Um, Ezekiel has very little sensory, and so I was able to use some of the terms that I learned through StarNet, tactile, um, auditory. I was able to use those terms in the IEP meeting. And that was very important because it made the team know that I did my research. It showed them that I did my research. It showed them that the self management tools and the assignment modifications and um, as I said, other different tools that was used to help him. It showed them that he had a dedicated parent, and it seemed like it made them listen even more. Um, I was very scared for him to start the general education, even going into a least restrictive environment. I just had to keep reminding myself because homework was overwhelming. That's something that he did not have in the self-contained program. He didn't really have homework. And this is the first time he had math. He had English, he had reading, and it's been moments where homework from that would take 30, 40 minutes is turning almost into a 3 hour session. And so watching him be frustrated, it just made me like, did I make the right decision? I even had meetings with his case manager. Like, should we just go ahead and put him back in the self-contained classroom? I don't think Ezekiel can do this. Didn't I didn't see it. And they would tell me just give it time because I was ready for him to go back to the self-contained classroom setting. But slowly I began to see it. I seen the growth. I seen the confidence. I seen how Ezekiel loves reading. He loves math. I cannot get him to be quiet about his classmates that he loves, which is something I did not see before in a self-contained environment. I didn't really see him expressing himself that much. Um, what I seen from Ezekiel is also him advocating for himself, making decisions. Just the other day, I had a meeting with his teacher, and his teacher was like, "Ezekiel is learning to advocate for himself. When he say he needs a break, he says, 'Hey, Miss A, can I have a break?'" And so once you give him that break, he comes back and he goes right back into work. So I'm very proud at the fact that he is able to advocate for himself, and seeing him not only embrace himself but embrace others and stand up for others. His journey hasn't been easy, but it was definitely worth it. I'm so glad I stood by his side because I didn't want my son to think that his mom didn't think he can do it when I knew he could. I just wanted him to know it. um, I think that sometimes our kids are capable more than what we even believe in. And we just have to be brave enough to let them have their chance. Yes, I have definitely seen growth socially. So when Ezekiel was in the self-contained classroom, Ezekiel was very quiet. Ezekiel was verbal, but his vocabulary, the phonological was it was hard for him. And so him being now in the least restrictive environment classroom, general education classroom, I can see that he's using more vocabulary. He's using more words. Um, as I said, he's expressing himself more when it comes to the whole emotional views on what sad was, what happy was. And now he like, hey, I'm happy. And he's able to identify that with a smile. I'm sad. He's able to say, I'm sad. And when I ask him, well, why are you sad? Even with the WH questions, he's able to answer them. And that's something that he wasn't able to do. So some things that I'm seeing now with him in the more general education setting, as I said, he's very talkative. Ezekiel is very talkative. He loved music before, um, but he loves even, and he's able to sing the songs word from word more now than he did when he was in preschool. At first, in preschool, he would just hum the melody, but now he's actually saying the words and he's actually understanding what he's saying. So we have been working with Ezekiel with that. Let's see. In preschool, as I said, Ezekiel mostly stuck to himself. Group settings, Ezekiel didn't want to be a part of. I was worried about that for him. But now that he's in the least restrictive environment, the general education classrooms, um, I've been seeing him blossoming more. As I said, he have more friends now. He's being invited to multiple parties. This is the first school year that my calendar have been filled with birthday parties. That's something I didn't experience in preschool or even kindergarten. But now it's like, oh, we have a birthday party. So I'm seeing him become this social butterfly. As I said, even in reading and math, Ezekiel in preschool, kindergarten, and even first grade, for him to sit down and read a book, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy for afterwards, okay, Ezekiel, what did we read about, or who was the main character? Ezekiel wouldn't be able to tell me that. He was just repeating what he would hear me say. But now, being in this general education classroom, he loves reading. I could ask him what was the story about, and he would tell me what the story was about. And like when I give him praises, like, man, Ezekiel, that's such a good job. I could see him bloom. I could see him like, yeah, I did do a good job. Even speaking affirmations, he does that on his own. I still do it as a parent, but every morning he wakes up saying, I'm brave, I'm smart, I'm strong. That's something new that he wasn't doing early on. So as I said, I just think it's been a confidence booster for him academically. I could see the growth. Um, just last year in first grade, when they was doing testing, he was still at a preschool level. And now that he's in second grade, although he's still not at a second grade level, he's went up to a first grade level. So that's a big like increase when it comes for education. I was really proud when I seen those test results. And I just really think him going into this general education classroom have really helped him overall. And not only that, here at home, it has helped his youngest brother. Him and his youngest brother, their conversations, sometimes I have to like, is that what I'm hearing? I'm hearing both of them just flowing in conversation. And as I said, his vocabulary increased so much that now my preschooler is using words that I didn't even know a preschooler would use, and he's using them in the correct form. Ezekiel would have his moments where communication, I could tell that he wanted to communicate with his classmate in a cluster setting. But unfortunately, it was very hard for him to communicate um, with them because Ezekiel never had experience with PECS, the picture exchange system. And so, if it was a setting where he wanted to communicate, there was always a barrier. But now, in general education setting, he's able to communicate. He's able to express himself. As I said, he is learning words that he did not know before, and he's using it appropriately. Um, Emotionally, as I said, his confidence level. He's no longer that shy kid that he was in cluster. He's really like in multiple programs at his school, multiple after school programs. He's even learning Spanish, which is something that unfortunately in cluster classroom, they did not learn. Like they didn't have the option to have any other like I guess like electives or special classes like French, Spanish, dance, music. The cluster settings wasn't necessarily able to participate in those classes, but the general education setting was. And so Ezekiel has more exposure in the general education setting to those things, Spanish, French, as I said, the dance class, even the cheerleading team at his school. Um, and even participating in pep rallies, like his school have a lot of spirit weeks and pep rallies. That would be something that he's able to participate now, because in cluster classroom, because the environment was too loud, he wasn't able to participate, and this makes school fun for him. So now being able to go to those pep rallies, go to those special events, he really likes it. So as a parent, knowing now that in cluster my son wasn't able to participate in these things, to now he's in general education, I could tell that inclusion did not take place, um, because my son missed out on so much. As I said, Spirit Week, he was able to dress up for Spirit Week, but when it comes to special assemblies, he didn't participate. To be honest, his first participation was his kindergarten graduation. And that's only because some of us parents wanted our child to be included. We fought for our child to be included. And so um, it is very mm, sorry, try not to cry. It is very hurtful because as a parent, um it makes you feel as though that the world views your child differently. And that's not a good feeling, because my child is just like the next child. My child wants to have fun just like the next child. And just knowing that in the education setting, um, that was going on. It just really wasn't a good feeling, but it also made me want to advocate even more for him, not just for him, but for other kids, so they would be able to participate in these events. And I just wanted to share one story um, at the school that he's at now, talking to the principal. And as talking to the principal, me being able to tell her my perspective from cluster, from the past to what's going on now. Now we have parades for the kids. So the kiddos in cluster classroom is able to participate in different parades. We're organizing Autism Awareness Week now for them. And for graduation pictures, they're able to actually participate. So just using some of the tools, from the environmental to the pacing of instructions and the communication, it's really, really been helpful to any parent that feel as though that their child necessarily isn't, I don't even know if I could say this, but if there's any parent who feels as though that their child is not included, even just in everyday activities at school or special events at school, is very important to be in contact with the teacher, be in contact with the principal, and advocate for your child, because you never know where that conversation would lead. And for me, it led in more of a positive way, where now my kiddo, even though he's in general education, and also cluster kiddos are involved. And it means the world seeing the smile on their faces when they're able to now go to the gym room with their headphones on and able to participate in Spirit Week and pep rallies. And they shake their pom poms. So just having those conversations with higher ups at the school have been wonderful. So yes, the toolkit was very helpful when it came to advocating for my son, especially at the IEP meetings. I was able to speak to them about the visual, because Ezekiel did some, he's more of a visual learner. So I was able to talk to them more about maybe putting more visuals into it, which they have, and it has 100% worked. Um, some other things that we have talked about was the changing the physical classroom now that he's in general education class, and he does have a paraprofessional with him. He was able to have a one-on-one paraprofessional with him. And so alternating like the physical classroom, that was really helpful for me to tell them during the IEP meeting. So now with him and his paraprofessional, they're like right there in front of the classroom, which is better for Ezekiel because Ezekiel does easily get distracted. But if he's right in the front, he's not paying attention to what's going on behind him. So that was really helpful. Asking for extended time when it comes to modification of homework and also testing. Ezekiel, as I said, he's advocating for himself that he need breaks. He's advocating for himself, saying that, hey, I need help. And so we have discussed now the time limit of the requirements of homework and the requirements of testing. So, what in the classroom setting when he's in school might take a 30-minute testing, he's able to take his time for at least an hour or so and not feel pressure. And he actually works better that way because, like, when they have the minutes, he feels like, oh, I have to hurry up and get it done. And he rushes, and that brings anxiety to him. So now he have learned how not to feels so much anxious and able to really take his time, but also allow breaks. Um, Another thing that he was have been able to do, Ezekiel is learning little sign language as well now to communicate because I do have another son, and we're learning his communication, and we're now learning that he communicates more with a sign language, the American Sign Language. And so Ezekiel is learning about sign language. And I did talk to his teacher about that. And she thought that it would be wonderful if the whole class learned. So they are supposed to be working on bringing someone from I forget the name of the organization, but bringing them into the school so they could also teach sign language as well, which would be wonderful communicating with the cluster classroom because there are some kiddos in the cluster classroom who does use ASL as their predominantly language. As I said, the diaries and the journals, I learned about that in the toolkits. That helps us communicate, and it also helps me know where my son is at academically. As I said, in the cluster classroom, all I was getting is, oh, Ezekiel did a great job today. The journals and the diary actually helped me with the recordings of what his teacher said he done now physically day by day by day. So when I go into those IEP meetings and if someone say, oh, well, we don't see Ezekiel hitting this milestone, I'm able to say, I seen on this day that Ezekiel did this, and Ezekiel did this because his teacher said that he can do it. And so um, that was one thing that was able to help. Copying class notes, Ezekiel, as I said before, when it comes to his homework, he's able now to write down his homework, the page number, the topic. He's able to write that down, and so it was really really helpful for me to advocate that even more because I believe in cluster classroom. As I said, it being more of a daycare center. I feel as though people was doing things for him, so it wasn't teaching him independence where in the general education setting, he has more independence. And so with him having more independence is more things he needs to do on his own. Um, and I said before about the assignment modification, just allowing him to have more time for his schoolwork or even giving him shorter schoolworks. I know for homework now, we did a modification in his IEP where although it might be 100 questions, Ezekiel is um, only has to do like 25. And that helps him because he doesn't feel rushed, or he doesn't feel like, oh, I'm not doing what was being asked. As he used to say in cluster classroom, it's just so difficult. It's just so difficult. It's like now he has the tools, and he's able to do those assignments on his own term. And then the self-management and follow throughs, just having a study guide teaching him how to study. um, Sometimes I do have him repeat the questions and directions to me just to make sure that he understands what's being asked of him. And he looks at me sometimes like, Ma, I got it. So it just shows me that he understands. And so having those things really have helped. The toolkit really have helped not only me advocate for him, but it also helped him to see, okay, I can do this. Let's check it off. I can do this. Let's check it off. The shortened length of assignments. Let's check it off, and it don't put that much pressure on him. So those are a few of the things. I probably have more, but my mind is all over the place right now. But those are a few. I do believe if this toolkit was presented early on, Ezekiel would have been in general education setting much earlier than second grade. I think this toolkit should be given during early intervention. Like if a child is in early intervention, this toolkit needs to be given to the parent during that time that that child is in early intervention, because it helps. It helps you as a parent understand what are the signs, or what is the tools that I need for my child to have a successful academic school year, from preschool, kindergarten, second grade, and so on. Um, for me, the toolkit not only taught me how to advocate for Ezekiel, it also taught me um, things that I wish I would have known beforehand. Because, as I said, Ezekiel probably, if he would have got this during early intervention, or even in first grade, by kindergarten, some of these milestones that he's just making in second grade, he would have made these milestones then. Um, Even when it comes to occupational therapy and the fine motor skills, even when it comes to speech, I just feel as though with these toolkits and the communication with the staff of the schools, for Ezekiel, and I'm only speaking for Ezekiel, he would not have had to go into cluster classroom for kindergarten or first grade if these things was presented early on.